Um, hey, Alex and Natalie. Oh, okay.
It's not even
5 more. It's not
3.
even.
We're
um,
live.
hi, folks. Welcome, Alex, and welcome, Natalie. Thank you, Alex Sheldon, for your support on the chat and with managing the event. And welcome to our attendees. So I'm just gonna go for it because we have 45 minutes to get through this awesome panel. So, hey everyone, welcome to Gender Diversity in Web3, Breaking Stereotypes in Crypto. Happy Equity Summit, happy post Ethereum merge, and happy almost fall in some places. Um, my name is Anuva Kalawar, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm based in New York City. I'm the co-founder of Mutual Love, the NFT platform and ecosystem centering and celebrating trans and queer creators and culture makers and participating in mutual aid and generational wealth building. I've personally been experimenting and learning about decentralization since about 2016. I'm also a visual artist, curator, and DJ in one major part of my life, and LGBTQ equity instigator in tech in another part of my life. Before co-founding Mutual Love, I spent the last 2 years as the first full-time employee and the director of community at Plume, a post-Series B startup and the largest trans healthcare clinic in the world. And before that, I was a comms director at Out in Tech. So trans and queer leadership, equity, and innovation is really near and dear to me and come informed by my own experiences as an out trans person in tech and my parallel passion for entrepreneurship and building a joyful, easeful, and sovereign future for all of us. I'm really, really excited to be here today. Thank you, Start Out, for having us at the Equity Summit. Thank you to this incredible, brilliant group of trans and queer volunteer leaders for making the time to be in conversation today virtually and via chat. Today, I am joined in conversation in a panel curated by the Start Out volunteers interested in this track about crypto and the blockchain. I'm joined by Natalie D and Alex G. Unfortunately, one of our other speakers, Natalie G, couldn't make it today. We are going to begin this space with short introductions from our amazing panelists. We will start with Natalie, then go to Alex, and then we'll move into some light questions, get a conversation going, and then open up to a Q&A feature in the chat. So welcome all, and Natalie, I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you, Anuva. That was a really amazing introduction, so tough act to follow. But my name is Natalie, she, her. I'm a transgender entrepreneur from Austin, Texas. And I've been in crypto only since 2019, so relatively new to the space. My background is digital marketing consulting, and my last client for that was actually a blockchain startup. So I learned all about crypto from them a few years ago, and quickly learned that crypto, for better or for worse, seems to be dominated by men, especially, cis white men. So I wanted to create a space more for, women, femme identifying, LGBT people, and just give people access and opportunities that, are traditionally reserved for men in the space. So I founded CryptoFem. I'm the co-founder currently, interim CEO. Our goal is to incorporate as a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and we would all just be, on the board of governors. And that's what I do. The goal is just education, resources, support for women and femme identifying people in crypto. And that's all I've got. I'll be followed by Alex G.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, both great intros. So now I have to go third. But no, my name is Alex. I use he, him pronouns. I am also one of the co-founders of Mutual Love. Like Anufa mentioned, Mutual Love is a platform and ecosystem centering and celebrating trans and queer creators. I myself am a trans man, and I also live in Austin, funny enough. And yeah, our vision is to build generational wealth, access, and intellectual ownership and equity on chain for trans and queer folks, in partnership with our trusted allies. And we imagine thriving and abundant trans and queer creators, ecosystems, and communities, and we fully believe that the blockchain is a tool to help make that happen. So very excited to be building this together. And I am way newer to, Web3 crypto, coming up on about a year, since, I really dove into it pretty much when we started Mutual. A year in, well, I guess we still have quite a bit of time per year, so very new, but been interested in it for a really long time. So I'm excited to, really be building in the space and bring something to our community, and show the community that we deserve to be here. Kind of like what you were talking about, Natalie. It's super important for us to show up in these spaces, and yeah, excited to be on this panel.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for your leadership and for doing the work that you're doing with so much intention and care, and being here today. It's always like such a blessing to be in the space with trans entrepreneurs and trans leaders. So just like some gratitude energy around that. So I would love to just kick it off, learning more about Crypto Femme and your journey to Web3 and crypto, and why you choose to pursue crypto, and what keeps you going. So Natalie, would love to start off with you, and then Alex, similar question, but about your blockchain journey.
I started Crypto Femme just as a Facebook group a little over a year ago, or actually almost a year ago. It's almost been exactly a year. And the goal originally was just like a local community in Austin, Texas, for socializing, support, some education. But since then, especially this past April and May, it's kind of evolved into an idea of creating an actual DAO on the blockchain, member owned, and just scaling to being a global phenomenon and movement of women and non-binary, femme-identifying people in crypto. And the reason why that evolution sort of happened was because, it's what the community wanted. So I think that's just a testament to, us moving toward actually incorporating as a DAO, and being something that's guided by the majority of our community, and creating that safe space for people who want to be involved in crypto, and want these opportunities and careers, maybe just like investors even, but they feel like the existing industry doesn't resonate with them. So we exist as an alternative to that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Natalie. Alex, would love to hear from you. Can't hear you.
Got it, muted. Dang. There's a lot of parallels as well for me in our journey. Like I mentioned, I'm relatively new to the world of Web3 and crypto, and I think part of that was, like, Natalie, what you're saying is that, like, fear of like, this just isn't for me, or like how, like, I don't know, I'm not, is there a space for me here? Is it like gonna make sense? And so it was really at South by last year. Anuva came to Austin, and we really experienced South by together. And Anuva was like talking about the blockchain and what that could be and what it was at the time. It's gone through its ups and downs since then, but still fully believe that this is the evolution of the internet that is happening. And so that really, like, seeing that for myself here at South by, and then talking to Anuva, and we just kind of like really started talking about what we could create for our community on the blockchain. And that's kind of where Mutual Love came about. And we were really like, okay, like let's do this. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, let's just try it. And it's been a really beautiful journey so far. And I'm still learning every day, as like we all obviously are. It's like such an evolving place to be as well, and things change really quickly as we see. So it's it's keeping my hope alive for so much cool stuff that we can do especially for like the trans and queer community in terms of, like intellectual property. I'm also a content creator outside of here, so I know what it's like to be shadow banned, and I know that our community is probably some of the most shadow banned people. As soon as you put hashtag trans on something, they're gonna like mute it typically. So that's really important to me, is just like making a space and showing trans and queer folks that like what you create and is like yours, and it should be celebrated in that way. And so many other things, archiving our history on the blockchain, super important to me. I'll definitely talk more about that later, because that's like, that I think sparked a big interest in it when I was like, okay, we can archive our history here and like be seen for it forever, essentially, hopefully. Really, we don't know, but right now it's there. No one can take that away from us. I do. Well, you good? Okay. But yeah, that's kind of my journey, and like what keeps me going, and just building community has been like so exciting. So that's been like such a highlight of, and I'm sure for you too, Natalie, just like you said, it's being built. All the things that we're doing essentially is like being built by community and what the needs are and what they're like, what people are asking for. So that's also really exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Had a little furniture blip, but I'm back now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that journey. Yeah, and just like when we're talking more about building community first at Mutual Love, right? We were talking about how concepts of like archiving and also the technology itself can reflect the already existing queer and trans ecosystems and further amplify and connect communities that are underbanked or systemically devalued because of the borderlessness of this technology and the so many different capabilities that are yet to be explored. Natalie, when we were chatting a few weeks ago about the future of community and community coordination, you shared a bit about your interest in DAOs as these member-owned coordination systems. Can you talk a little bit more about DAOs? What DAOs are for folks here, and just your own journey to making a DAO happen? Like, what does it actually take?
So my journey for the past few months, since I kind of made the choice to pursue a DAO for our community, and other co-founders along with me sort of got on board with the idea. We've talked to consultants, we've talked to like Web3 freelancers, developers, especially. And a lot of people have tried to dissuade us from the idea of creating a DAO because, by its nature, a DAO is decentralized. It's kind of like comparable to a co-op, a traditional organization or company that is a co-op entity, where, the other alternative, of course, was to be like a centralized blockchain startup where the founders would have more control over the the organization. So a lot of people have told us that incorporating as a DAO is not such a good idea. It might be less lucrative for the founders, and I think that's a terrible standpoint to come from, because we're not creating CryptoFam to make a lot of money from people buying our. We're creating it to provide opportunity for the members of the community, and it's CryptoFem is by the idea is to be by the members and for the members. So that's why we settled on creating it as a DAO, so that everyone could have voting power in the long-term direction of the organization, and transparency, because we as the founders of CryptoFem are not in it to make a lot of money.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so important to highlight, like what community ownership is, what community driven means. Like, can you give us an example of how government works? Like, how does somebody how are decisions made, and like what tools do people use to make decisions? Like, let's say someone, leaves this conversation as like, hey, actually, like, I'm like interested in turning what I'm working on into a DAO. Like, how do you get started doing that?
So there's a few resources out there, especially for non-technical founders like myself. When it comes down to the nitty-gritty, like how it works as far as like, writing the white paper for the DAO, or knowing how to program these smart contracts for a DAO. That's not really my lane. However, there's a DAO called DAO House, DAOHAUS. And they are on Discord. You can find them. They basically help non-technical founders with organizations or companies that they want to incorporate as a DAO. They help them get set up with like, tokenization and community voting, and all sorts of resources like that. So that's one resource that I can recommend. As far as what it looks like conceptually, basically the idea is that, any decision that you want to put forward to the community, you can do so and they can vote on it. Like, for example, do we want our community to be more about education for women in crypto, or do we want it to be more about like advancement and career opportunities, and so on? So yeah, you can put forward decisions like that, and the community can just vote on them.
That is super cool. In your experience, being part of a DAO or starting DAOs, like, what does it take to create a culture, just from your perspective of like where these decisions are made in this like trusted way, especially as like, maybe because like coming from communities that are queer, trans, non-binary, right? Maybe there's more understanding about how community coordination works, but like super, that's been one of just like my questions of like, how is this actually working? And how is like this distributed governance working and decision making working? Do you have any insight about the cultural frameworks or that you might practice?
I guess just putting the idea community that we exist for the purpose of benefiting them. You know, it's sometimes it's a little difficult because, especially for us, obviously right now the crypto market is down, so most of our community are beginners. They are not experienced in even traditional investing. So to them, the market being down is a lack of social proof. It tells them that maybe right now it's dangerous to invest, or they might not want to, they might not be super motivated to learn about crypto investing, or even just like crypto in general, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So it's kind of like, we've been working to figure out a way to overcome these biases. People have their friends who've lost money in crypto in the past year because they bought when the market was high, or they're reading all these like media articles about the market written by people who don't have a financial education. So for us, it's just a matter of overcoming these ideas and perceptions and letting people know that now is actually a perfect time to learn and get involved in crypto. And so let us help you as, the Crypto Fam organization.
Perfect. That's so awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and then just like your points, especially around trust, right? Trust around is what knowledge is reliable and trustworthy, and then communities like you said that have already experienced barriers to financial education. That's kind of I think the world we're all living in right now. And something that we've been talking a lot about at Mutual Love is how mutual aid is part of these ecosystems, the queer and trans ecosystems, and how the blockchain can be a tool to not only build like financial equity as a way of generating wealth, but also a way of sharing resources. So we also consider mutual aid to be mutual knowledge sharing, mutual accessibility. Like, what does that really mean to move with that intention? So Alex, what are some ways that you are thinking about from your perspective, how building on-chain solutions can specifically amplify queer and trans creators and cultural knowledge economies, and how are you approaching it in terms of like community building?
Yeah, I mean, I think the blockchain gives us a real way to, like you mentioned, like for us, mutual aid is so much more than just like the money aspect, even though incredibly important and incredibly possible through blockchain. And that's one of the ways in which, we amplify our creators, to make sure that, they know that when they come into Web3, or like that they find these homes for themselves through us, or what you're building as well, Natalie, and just like can have this accessible knowledge. That's another mutual aid aspect that we feel like is so important, is the reality, like you were mentioning, right? There's so much noise and there's so much reality of what's happened for folks. People have lost money. Some people have gotten a lot of money. And so being able to give folks the reality of the situation and the like factual stuff about what is really happening is another very important piece, especially for queer and trans folks who sometimes have gotten taken advantage of in certain ways financially, or they are underserved, undervalued, underbanked, which we know for a fact is a reality as well. So, on top of that, also, one of the most important things that I mentioned slightly is the intellectual property. Um, I see, obviously, I know a lot of creators. I'm a creator myself. And so I know a lot of like trans and queer creators on things like TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. That's what I'm on a lot of times. But the reality of making money on those apps is non-existent. I'm going to be 100% honest. No one on there, or a lot, I mean, there's people on there that make a lot of money, but most folks are unfortunately not. And there's this idea that like, that's just the way things are, right? Like that's just how it is. But the reality is it doesn't have to be like that. And creating opportunities for folks on the blockchain to have ownership of their content and be able to do what they want with their content and get appropriately paid for their content in various different ways is such an important piece of what we're trying to build. And in terms of like community, I think what Natalie was saying is so like important, and what you brought up, Anuva, about like trust, right? Like the basis is like that you need to, have trust with your community, and building that, especially with trans and queer folks, especially in Web3 and crypto, like like there's more and more barriers that they've been through in all these different aspects. And so I think I've seen a lot of resistance, obviously, and we know that for a fact. And on the opposite end, a lot of interest and fear, right? Like most of it is just that like initial fear of like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I don't know, I'm still kind of like gonna be like around and not really, come into it fully. But there's real opportunity with that. And part of that comes with um, creating that trust and building that trust. And one of those ways is to be frankly honest with your community, in my opinion, telling them the realities of what could happen, what this is. Crypto is not, and for some people it might be, but it's not an overnight success either. It doesn't mean that most of the time, people don't come on and the next day they're like millionaires. I wish, like, for everybody, especially trans and queer folks. But there's so much more than just selling NFTs. There's, community building and what, how that can change everything for our communities, especially. So yeah, just building that trust is a really interesting part of this journey, and making sure people know the truth, know the facts, and know the possibility, because the possibilities are truly endless. And I just really, like, one of my main goals is to make sure that our community knows that, um, there's a place here for everybody, and we want to be here from the beginning, because the last thing we want is to be left behind, like we have been in the past. So that's really big for us. It's just being like come join us now, because I really don't want it. It's only a matter of time until everybody's using the blockchain, like that's and crypto and stuff like that. Like that's just the reality. And it, there's resistance to that. That's fine. I understand that. But I just don't want our community to get left behind. We want to build now from in the beginning. And that's super important.
Yeah, can I caveat off of that?
Yeah.
So, sometimes I compare crypto and blockchain and Web3 to being the internet of today, like today's revolution compared to the internet revolution of the 90s. So imagine if it was only cis heteronormative people who were creating email addresses and sending each other emails and like knowing how to use websites, and then like all the LGBT people had to rely on like their friends to like show them how to do these things or do it for them. So that's kind of like how it is with crypto. Like obviously there's not that much mass adoption yet, but as more organizations and companies get involved in crypto, it'll become more part of our daily lives whether we like it or not. So
Exactly.
I think it's important for us all to just like stay ahead of the curve and figure out how to do these things as a community, and not just have to be, left behind or learn how to do it later down the road when everyone else is already like doing it.
Exactly. 100%.
100%. That is a natural segue into the next question. So, like, talking about accessibility and, scaling accessibility in some way, where, is it coming from a place where you're intentionally understanding how, you're interacting with this technology or not? And, we're living in a world, we're in a post Starbucks adopting NFT world now. So, when we talk a lot about, these similar things that you both have been sharing about accessibility to this knowledge. We like to use the term gate breaking. And, a lot of the concepts, when we talk about these, we're still in this conceptual framework around why the value proposition of Web3, right? Especially for our communities, but for everybody. So, in your experience from the community building and leadership and trainings that you've done, what does accessibility, like actual accessibility and onboarding, look like for the global LGBTQ community? And what's one tip or some tips you'd give to queer and trans founders or contributors entering the space, just from your own experiences in the space? Natalie, I'd love to start with you and your journey with CryptoFam.
Yeah, so the one counterpoint to the mainstream adoption is the lack of accessibility and, I guess, user-friendly interface. It's hard to buy crypto and transfer crypto and mint NFTs. People rely on YouTube videos and TikTok videos that show them how to do these things, but it's not really something that you can figure out on your own if you're brand new to crypto. So that's why the power of community is so helpful. We we can do these on our own and just try to figure out how to use crypto, whether we're investors or founders, creators of something, or we can come together as a community and show each other how to do it and share our time and energy teaching. So that's sort of one aspect of CryptoFam. And for the founders out there who are, whether you're technical or not, you have an idea, you know a little bit about blockchain, and you have an idea for how to leverage it and pursue your vision. Just keep it comes down to customer experience or client experience. So, whatever it is you're creating, it's key to make it as user friendly and intuitive as you can. You know, if it doesn't look good and it's hard to use, then that's maybe something to look at.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah, definitely agree. I think a lot about accessibility, especially being newer to the blockchain and Web3. Like you mentioned, I honestly, if it wasn't for like Anuva, and then like just finding community to like explain it, it's really not something that I think with what's out there right now, it's easy to first of all understand, and second of all onboard onto successfully. And so now being like building in it, I'm like always thinking about like how that's possible. And like you mentioned, it really is about like coming together, trusting, and like first people that are in it to feel to be able to like offer that information and give that information. And there's a lot of like amazing trans and queer spaces that are doing that, and like it's just been a blessing to see that and like partner with folks that are doing that as well to bring more to the community. Um, Also, you know, globally, like most of stuff is in English right now. You know, there definitely is space for more like globalization, localization, you know, different languages, different abilities, and you know, still trying, you know, of course, everything's new. So just keeping that in mind as I build or as folks build, you know, that there's a lot of people that are going to be coming into this. Like you mentioned, at some point, we're all going to be using it in some form. Um, but yeah, the words that we use, you know, being mindful of that is like super important. If you're like starting something, I guess this is a tip also for founders. It's just like being mindful of, because once you're in the space, like I've had conversations with people, especially like my family, and like they don't know, like they're like, what are you saying? Like, what are you talking about? What even is an NFT? You know, and like now there's, you know, there's great, you can Google that and stuff, but still, when we're, especially as founders, when we're talking to our community and trying to onboard folks, there's a, it's it's good to be mindful about othering, especially like trans and queer folks. Um, and just yeah, be mindful of like, yeah, we may know these like certain terms, but most folks just don't at this point. And sometimes, and someday, most, I mean, almost everybody will, and that's really interesting to be able to see that. But I think in the beginning, just being super mindful of the ways in which we try to communicate this to other folks, in the words that we use and just the ways that we talk about it. Because sometimes it's super heady, and even for me, I'll like see certain things. I'm like, I didn't retain any of that, and then like, even as a builder in this space, so that always gets me thinking. Just like, okay, we could be a little more accessible or explain maybe things a little more, especially when we're talking to people that are non Web3 native. Um, but yeah, I guess yeah, like you mentioned, just building that community, being, and once you're in, offering that to others, and that's the only way we can continue to like open this up to folks, especially marginalized folks, which yeah, we need to continue to do.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Just vigorous head nods when both of you are chatting and talking. So thank you both for your insight and leadership. We have about 1 minute until questions. We go into the question portion of things. I do have a last question. Just like, do you have any plugs for some of your favorite projects, DAOs, collectives, chains, ecosystems right now, or things people should check out to get involved with?
Yeah, so for the women and femme identifying people, non-binary people watching this, you know, link.cryptofem.org/community is the Facebook fem. That link in the future, in the coming months, is probably going to change to Discord as we transition our community over to that platform. But the Facebook group will always be around, and you know, we have Telegram, whatever you want to follow us on. Everything, every social media is just at CryptoFemOfficial. And also, we do have a lot of educational stuff. You know, we have this 8-week beginner level program for crypto curious people. We have the Token Engineering Academy for more intermediate to advanced people who want to be recruited and start careers in Web3. And then we have the Crypto Fabulous month-to-month membership, which is more just like access and opportunities in crypto, but not necessarily education.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely. Check out what we're building also at Mutual Love. Anyway, I'm sure you'll put the website in there. We're actually really excited to have our first mutual monthly conversation Zoom event with folks at the end of the month. So if y'all are interested, we'd love to see you there. It's just going to be really chill, meet others in the community, come hang out. And yeah, it's just a place to build community, get updates on what we're doing. And yeah, and other than that, also, if you're interested in like education and stuff like that, Take Up Space does really good educating, queer owned as well. Future Proof, Web3 Familia. There's a lot of great folks out there doing some cool work.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. We have about 8 minutes left. We're moving into questions now. So if there are any questions from our wonderful audience community, please let us know. You can let us know in the Q&A feature in the chat, or if you want to put it in the chat itself, I can pick up those questions too. Nicole, just saw your message. So good to see a familiar face here. Thanks for the love and support always.
Yeah. And also Samuel, that sounds really cool. Love that you bought digital land in Decentraland. Cool. And yeah, would love to stay in touch. We'll definitely keep your email. Can I go ahead and save that?
Yeah.
Super cool. Cool.
Any questions?
Oh, let's see.
Let's see.
What's the best way to get started?
There's a question from Alex Sheldon for newbies in the space. What's the best way to get started in Web3 and crypto? It's a great question.
That is a good question. Honestly, personally, I've learned, which I know is like kind of funny, but I've learned so much just like through Twitter, to be 100% honest. That's really been a place that I've been able to find different communities. Also very much urge folks to like, if you, let's say you have like, a person, me or Natalie or Anuva or something, and like, I encourage people to ask, be like, where do I find community, first of all? Because I know also like Web3 Twitter can be like kind of wild space. But when you start to like curate, and like follow the people that, you want to follow, it's like really cool. And there's always so much to learn. Obviously people use Discord a lot. I am on there, but not really very often. And then Natalie, like you were saying, Telegram and stuff. But yeah, I really started my journey on Twitter, to be 100% honest. Like most people have a Twitter, and it's like an easy way to kind of start bouncing around and being like, okay, I like what this person's doing or talking about. And like sliding in people's DMs. Like most people, or I would hope that people are really open to like teaching and like sharing what they know. So I've done that too. I've had people come into my DMs, like trans folks, being like, hey, like I don't really know anything about this, but I'm kind of curious. Like, and I'll be like, cool, like let's Zoom. Like I'm always down to talk. So it's cool to see that like come full circle sometimes.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions for our amazing, brilliant panelists? not, that is totally okay. We can give it another minute if folks are thinking. Or Natalie, if you wanted to give an answer to that question, no pressure.
Yeah, I guess Web3 is such a nebulous term, you know. A lot of people use it to mean different things. For newbies, I guess it just depends, you know. Are you coming to Web3 as a potentially a crypto investor or like a developer who wants to learn Web3 crypto developer stuff? Not that I'm familiar with that. You know, there's a, but actually, as far as people who want to learn Web3 developer stuff, you know, there's always like hackouts and incubator programs. I wish I had a list, but I do know I've heard of a handful, and maybe like Alex or Nuva can recommend some Web3 like incubators or hackouts, especially for people who have a background in software engineering or development. Um, you know, if you know JavaScript, if you know Rust, then there's definitely a lot of entry into the Web3 space.
Yeah, Future Proof has a cool dev program. So you can see community on Discord to join where there are developers. I'm sure
there might be. There probably is. Agenda DAO is a really cool. How do I spell that? Has a lot of tech people. There's some really cool trans tech leaders at Zora. Gem Gold, someone to reach out to. She's awesome. Plug into. She's does developer relations, so she also has like a really big network of folks in that space.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Discord, but it's not coming to my mind right now.
Yeah, I think Agenda DAO has it's like if you're thinking of just for trans and queer folks, there are a lot of it's an artist space, and there are lots of technical folks in there too. Any other questions? If not, we can wrap up. We have 2 minutes left. Huge thank yous to everyone who came and supported us, to these awesome leaders and panelists. Please follow their work, support their work. Thank you, Alex Sheldon, for your support on chat. Yeah, and let us know. Follow CryptoFems, follow Mutual Love, and see you on chain. Thank you. Bye.
See y'all. Bye.